Hey you guys, it is so good to see you. Welcome to Miss Shelley's virtual living room classroom, day 2. So sitting next to me on the couch is my cat. He is super excited to learn about the lesson that we're going to be learning about today, which is factoring. Take 2. Okay, so just like yesterday, I'm going to start us the do now, and then we'll talk about some new content. And then actually today I'm going to end us with an exit ticket in this video that you're going to respond to my email and give me the answer. All right, just like yesterday, I'd like you to please pause the video after I show you the do now question to try it on your own. All right, guys, here is your do now question. Please, if you will, factor x squared plus 7x minus 30. Okay, let's talk about this. All right, so I see a quadratic trinomial, 1, 2, 3 trinomial, right? So I know I'm going to break it up into 2 smaller binomials. Remember, there's no coefficient here, right? So it's just x, so we're going to break it up x and x. All right, to figure out our back number here, remember we need 2 numbers that are going to multiply to 30. So I have 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 4 won't go in evenly, 5 will go in 6 times, and we've got 6. All right, great. So here are all the factors of 30. So let's figure out which set we're going to use. I need to get to a negative 30. That means when I multiply these numbers, one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative, right? Because that's the only way I can multiply them to get to a negative 30. All right, so what that also means is I'm going to be subtracting these numbers to get to my middle term, which is a positive 7. So let's see which set of numbers we'll subtract to give me 7. Don't worry about the positive yet. All right, 30 minus 1 is 29. 15 minus 2 is 13. 10 minus 3 is 7, though. Looking good. And let's just double check. 6 minus 5 is 1. All right, so I'm going to use 3 and 10. All right, now let's talk about the signs. What I need to get is this middle term of a positive 7. Again, I know one of my numbers is going to be positive, one's going to be negative. Remember, how we know which one is which is how can I put a positive and a negative here to give me a positive 7? Well, I need my bigger number to be positive, right? So I need a positive 10, then a negative 3. So negative 3 and positive 10 will multiply that negative 30, and then negative 3 plus 10 also gives me that positive 7. All right, great. So I'm just going to take this negative 3 and positive 10, put them in my parentheses. All right, and we're done. We factored. And if you're not sure if this is right, remember you can always multiply back out to make sure you end up with what you started with. All right, great job on the do now, you guys. So what I want to do to start is just make sure we're on the same page with some common vocabulary. We kind of talked about this before, but I want to make sure I bring it back up. So I want to talk about what's the standard form of a quadratic equation look like. Well, what it looks like is ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are just numbers. So let me give you an example. Let's say I give you the quadratic equation 2x squared plus 3x minus 6. All right, great. So here's how you know what your numbers are. Your a number is whatever is with your x squared term. So my a number would be 2. My b number is whatever is with my x term. So my b would be 3. Oh, I should also reiterate, this is a positive 2, a positive 3, because remember, we always take our signs. So our c number is this back number. This is why I really said that. Remember, c is not 6, c is negative 6. Make sure you're taking your signs. Okay, so why am I bringing this up? Well, yesterday and today in the do now, this is what we saw, problems like this. X squared, let me just use our do now question. So if I ask you what's your a, b, and c, you'd be like, c is negative 30, b is this positive 7, but what's my a? I don't see a number here. So remember, anytime you don't see a coefficient, there's always a 1. So our a would be 1. The number with our x squared, your a, is also called your leading coefficient. So I'm going to say that a lot. Remember, the number with your x squared, also called your a, is called the leading coefficient. So yesterday and in the do now, we only saw problems that had a leading coefficient of 1, but that's not always the case. I can get something like this, right? Where my leading coefficient's not 1. So I want to look at, well, how do we deal with that? So let's look at that. I'm going to give you a problem real quick. So I'm going to give you 3x. I'm going to put this up in just 1 second. Okay, I'm going to give you this problem to factor. We have, 3x squared plus minus 18x plus 24. Well, how do we factor this since this isn't 1? Because it's a little different to break up. So here's the first thing you want to do. Anytime you don't have a 1 as your leading coefficient, look at all 3 of your terms, or all the terms you have. Is there something that is divisible by all 3? Essentially your greatest common factor. So if you think back to polynomials, we pulled out that greatest common factor and divided all the terms by it. So we're going to do that same thing. We're going to say, is there something that will go into all 3 of these? And I'm looking, I'm like, oh yeah, 3. All these numbers are divisible by 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out a 3. Here's how that works. Whatever the greatest common factor is that you're pulling out, write it, right? Just like we did with polynomials. What I'm going to do is see, what do I have left if I divide all the terms by my greatest common factor? So I'm going to divide all the parts by 3, see what I have left. Again, this is just like when we worked with polynomials. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. Cool, I don't need the 1. I can just put x squared. Negative 18 divided by 3 is a negative 6x. And positive 24 divided by 3 is 8. All right. So what we're going to do now is say, okay, well, I'm not done yet. I can still factor this, right? So I'm going to see, how can I factor this? Well, my 3 is just going to hang out here. It's just going to chill. What I'm going to do now is factor this into 2 different binomials like I did yesterday. So now, the reason we factor out that 3 is now that x just has 1 as the coefficient, and it works just like it did yesterday. So now that x is going to break up x and x. I'm still going to figure out my back number by looking at this. All right, so I have 8. What are all my factors of 8? I have 1 and 8, and I have 2 and 4. Okay. Because I have a positive 8, that means I'm going to have same signs. Either both are going to be positive or both are going to be negative. But still, that means I'm going to be adding my numbers, right? So what I want to know is which of these sets will add up to 6? Well, 1 plus 8 is 9, but 2 plus 4 is 6. So that is what we want to use, right? So great, I'm going to use 2, and I'm going to use 4. Again, now I have to figure out, I want to get to a negative 6. So the idea is, because I'm going to have the same signs, I just have to figure out, are they both going to be positives or both going to be negatives? Well, if I have positive 2, positive 4, that gives me a positive 6. That is not what I want. But if I have negative 2 and negative 4, that will give me negative 6. That is what I want. So now I've got negative 2 and negative 4. I'm just going to put them in my parentheses. And that, my darlings, is your final answer. Oh, sorry, that 3 should be in there, I promise. Okay, what I want to do is I want to give you one as a U-try. Just like yesterday, after I show you the U-try question, please pause this video to try it on your own. Okay, here is going to be your U-try. I'm going to give you 2x squared minus 10x minus 12. So please pause this video and take a minute to try to factor this. All right, let's talk about this. So I don't have a leading coefficient that's 1. But what I'm going to do is look, is there any number or any term that's divisible by all 3 of these? Yeah, 2, right? That means I can factor out a 2. So what I'm going to do is say, okay, well, what happens if I divide all these terms by 2? Again, this is the greatest common factor, so I need to write it. It's hanging out, just chilling. Now you're going to write, what do you get when you divide all these terms by 2? Well, 2 divided by 2 is just 1, so I can just put x squared. Negative 10 divided by 2 is a negative 5. Keep your x. And then negative 12 divided by 2 is a negative 6. All right. So this is what we got. Remember, we're not done. All I did was I factored out the greatest common factor. Now I can do more to this, and I can factor this. So let's do it. So I'm going to take all of this and talk about factoring it. So 2 is hanging out. I'm going to make my two binomial parentheses. Again, now my coefficient's 1, so just straight up divide it up, x and x. Now I need two numbers that are going to multiply to 6. So here are the factors. 1 and 6, 2 and 3. Okay, I want a negative 6. So what that means is the signs are going to be different, right? One positive, one negative. So that means I'm going to be subtracting my numbers. So which one of these sets will subtract to this 5? Well, 6 minus 1 is 5. All right, that's looking pretty good. And then 3 minus 2 is 1. Not going to work. All right, so you see I'm going to use 1 and I'm going to use 6. Now to figure out how can I get to a negative 5. So again, my signs are going to be different. So what I'm going to do is say, okay, I need my bigger number to have that negative. Because a positive 1 minus 6 gives me that negative 5, which is what I want. So cool, I've got positive 1, negative 6, put them in your parentheses. And this is your totally factored form. All right, I have an exit ticket for you. I'm going to write your exit ticket. Give me 1 second. Sorry guys, I'm new at making videos, so please don't judge too harshly. Okay, this is what I would like you to do for your exit ticket. Please, I would like you to factor this. And then what I would like for you to do is to please send me an email with your answer. So I sent you an email earlier. I'll also send this link. And so just reply to that email with your final answer of what does this look like when you factor it. All right, you guys. I miss you all so much. Please join our Google Hangout at 3 if you have any questions or just would like to say hello. Miss you guys. Love you.